Safi, how are you?
Hi, hi. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really
Yeah,
good.
long time.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining. I'm not sure if we have a huge agenda today.
Yeah, I said I should come back, and I had some personal things to settle, you know, last year. But yeah, now I'm back.
Cool. Well, good
Yeah.
to see you.
How are you? Yeah, yeah, you as well.
Good. Good.
How
Yeah,
was how's the start of 2024 for you?
yeah, not too bad.
People coming back energized from the winter break.
Yeah, exactly. I went to the Grand Canyon here in America and didn't even get reception for a couple days, so that was good.
Oh, wow, cool. I should have been there, but we had to cancel.
Oh,
We couldn't go.
yeah, that's a worthwhile trip at some point.
You did it with the kids or?
Yeah, and I got pretty nervous that they were going to fall off the cliff edge.
Yeah,
Yeah, we all made it back.
yeah. Cool.
Hi, Karina. Now back
The
to
same
the
issue as yesterday.
back to making CNCF a great cloud, make cloud native computing ubiquitous. That's our mission. Karina, did you hear it? Did you happen to get in touch with Carlos? I didn't
I
write.
I haven't heard back. I just pinged him on multiple Slacks and so they may not be joining us today.
Yeah. Okay. Let me write to Marsh because I told him.
Okay. I mean, let me go check again. So for they're deciding what they want to do with their application for the others that are on the call.
Yeah. Hey, folks. Our agenda for today is pretty sparse. Um, we're hoping to talk about APIs and the role of APIs, a little bit about the role of APIs in tag app delivery, but particularly Apicurio, we were hoping to hear from them today. And we'll see if they're here. So I guess I'll go quiet for a minute or two and we'll see if they come.
Hey folks, very happy New Year to everyone here.
Yeah, hello. Would you like to, we like to start the meeting. I mean, it's a little bit, maybe a minute early, but maybe go ahead and introduce new folks.
Sure, I can go first. I think,
Yeah,
hey everyone, I'm Buddha. I'm a developer advocate at Trike. We are in the API management experience space. We've got an open source API gateway that powers it all. The interesting part about today's discussion is obviously we are talking about APIs, which is obviously a place that we play in on a regular basis. But equally, we are working on something that's interesting, which hopefully I'll be able to present to this team, which is around sort of an API platform maturity model, which sort of takes what you guys have already done with the platform engineering maturity model at large, which obviously provides a really nice introductory framework. We want to try and take a step forward, making it a little bit more specific to API and API platform teams and see what that would look like. So we've sort of started putting that draft together. And hopefully in about a month's time, we'll be able to at least get your feedback on it. We would love to see what you think about it, whether we are missing certain dimensions. It's sort of, we are taking a two-level approach to this, where we take the level one being the main CNCF platform engineering maturity model, and level two goes into the specifics of an API platform and all associated things around, compliances and governances and securities and some of those specific capabilities that you would want to talk about. So more on that later on, but just wanted to let you guys know that it's something exciting that we're working on at this point.
that's very cool. Yeah, I'm definitely curious to see and understand what you mean by like it takes a level two and adds to it. But I will look forward to reading it. Could be when
100%.
you're ready, you open the issue in the repo and let everyone know you're working on it. I'm sure. Do you know about the API enhancements proposals group that came to us a few months ago?
No, sorry, I'm not aware of that.
Okay, it's a group. It's kind of an unofficial group. It never was officially accepted in CNCF, but they have a channel in CNCF called AEP, which stands for API Enhancement Proposals. Um,
Right. Okay.
there's a guy, Marsh Gardiner, who's not here today, but he's very interested in advancing that. So I suspect he'll want to check out your work, and maybe that gives us. We had talked about forming a working group for APIs, and this paper might be, a first thing to get out for them. So.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Again, this is very early stage at this point. We would love to get, other people contributing and letting us know, what would be actually beneficial for you as well. We obviously have an initial hypothesis that we are working based off of what we know about the industry. But the whole idea about sharing it with this community would be to, understand, if there are missing links and more completeness that it might require from the API platform space. So yes, absolutely. I've joined the AEP group now, so I'll try and reach out to the folks there. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's definitely, I'll tell you from my experience, it's good to come in with something written and a pretty solid piece of paper written, and then it is really beneficial if you can do it to get the input from, the 40, 50 people that will contribute over a few months and share their insights. That's what happened with both of the platforms papers, actually.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's what I'm looking forward to. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So we're at 10:06. We're supposed to be talking about API Apicurio, but as I was saying before to the folks who were here a few minutes ago, we're not sure if they're going to be continuing with their application at this moment. That's what we learned after the first of the year. So we didn't officially cancel this meeting, but we might not have that much to talk about today. I guess I can give you all an update on what's happening in the platforms working group. There has been a nice effort. I think I've learned that slow and steady wins the race. You take gradual steps forward. So the past few months, somebody had proposed already a long time ago platform as product research, and then the past few months we've transformed that into an interviewing framework. We had a couple initial interviews, and we're continuing to iterate. We now have a pretty standard template, which we're hoping to use broadly and gather some consistent insights, I guess. The goal, the reason why we want to have a template is so that, if different folks interview different folks, we can all learn from the results. So, yeah, it's not so easy to coordinate that kind of effort, I guess, in a public forum, but I think it's gone pretty well so far. And we'll just continue iterating forward on it.
And there's a lot of discussion about KubeCon and how to do interviews in Paris and what to do at the booth. So if anybody's going to be in Paris at KubeCon and wants to get involved with that,
yeah,
that seems interesting.
I didn't put on KubeCon on our agenda this week, but that is a good point, Karina. Let's think about that. How we're going to leverage that booth. Yeah. So I guess, hello, Florian, by the way, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sorry. Hello, my Zoom just completely crashed. My name is Florian, product marketing at Humanitech. We are currently preparing the submission of SCORE open source workload specification as an open source sandbox project. So we will finish this by end of the week. And nice to meet all of you.
Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing more about that. I think we invited you to come to the platforms group because you actually presented to this group about a year ago. I think Susa did. And so we asked you to come for the platforms group in 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, we're going to hear about SCORE in the platforms group. Yeah, it kind of ties into this discussion about APIs. The reason why we wanted to bring up APIs today is because what we're finding in the platform space is platform engineering teams are creating another level of interfaces, APIs, if you want to call them that. It could be GitOps files and GitOps 2, whatever the interface is, but they're coming in with these new structures, these new collections of properties, and it would be great if we could head off what will certainly be every enterprise having their own specific APIs, if we can try to encourage some patterns and some standards. That's at least how I see APIs being pretty relevant to the infrastructure space. We had a conversation about that yesterday in the platforms group. So I think that'll come up again, Florian, when you talk to us next in a couple weeks. You know, what's the API that you're using within SCORE?
Yeah.
How does it fit with others?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So if anyone else wants to discuss anything, let me open the floor. Otherwise, I think we'll probably call this one. We do have a meeting scheduled for next week, and we will check in with the Connect folks. It's about a framework for RPC called Connect. And I will double check with them before next week to be sure that we're on for that.
How does Paris get organized, and what, you know, I went to a KubeCon a long time ago, but not as sort of like a CNCF participant at all. So I submitted a couple of talks, for instance, and which didn't get taken up, but you know, I'm interested in going because I feel like I kind of missed out on the North America as I joined the group right after. So just wondering what's going on, and never been to Paris. I've been to other parts of France, but not Paris.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to have your participation. What we usually do is a few things. We run a project meeting on the day before. That's what we've done the past 3 KubeCons, but that might change this one. I think they're changing that format. But the past 3, we've had a 4-hour project session where we have some discussion of tag business in the working groups, some presentations and lightning talks. That would be a place where we could potentially ask an end user that's open to it to come in and tell us their stories. Another thing that we do is we run in the project pavilion. So in the you know, the floor, you know, the vendor floor and everything, they dedicate a space for CNCF projects and for tags. So we've had a half-day booth where we've both held some lightning talks, and we also talk with whoever wants to come talk about, you know, the overall set of projects in CNCF. But we also try to be like a place for like the long tail, like folks that wouldn't otherwise have a booth, you know, to talk about their project and stuff. So those are probably the 2 big opportunities to like ask folks to come over and be interviewed. We also will have a session, probably, I'm not working on it this time, but a couple other folks are, just to talk about the tags work for like a half hour, just a session. In the past, we've used that session. We had a panel on platforms actually in Chicago. So we've used it for different things. I
Okay.
think that's it. So booth, project meeting, session. Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to help with any of those. I've done booths here and there at conferences, so happy to work on that. It would be interesting to have like the booth and, you know, interview area. Like if we could do some sort of like spot thing, maybe a abridged questionnaire or something for the stuff we're trying to find out from the interviews. That could be interesting.
Yeah, we'll put up a sheet for sign up for booth duty, you know, probably in like a month or so. So definitely look for that. And let's think about that. What would the framework look like?
You know, your mention yesterday of a forum when I was talking about you know, I sent something to Michael today about like if we're not getting the tools, what are the pain points, and like how could we address those? And you know, maybe a forum collecting into a sheet is the best thing, and then you know, putting that, then formatting that into stuff we can review and you know, HTML or whatever. But yeah, there's some work to do there if we ramp this up into, more interviews and more data to look at.
Yeah, I agree with getting it into a form that will make it easier for us. I mean, we could try putting it into a Google form.
Yeah, that would be the easiest thing, is drop it into Sheets, and then you could take out a CSV and format it however you want and work with it however you want to.
Mm. Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. You know, it's interesting because we tried to get a survey going about a year ago, and I think we were dissatisfied with that, although I haven't gone back. I mean, we did get some responses, and we probably should learn from those. But maybe what we're basically arriving at is that we need kind of a combination survey plus interview, like it's a guided survey almost.
Yeah, for people, for walk-up type stuff,
Yeah.
it might be neat to collect some information about whether or not they're worth trying to contact further, or even their interest in it, right?
Yeah.
Karina, you had your hand up.
I was going to just mention that I dropped the planning issue into the chat, and I just wanted to ask if you could capture your thoughts, because they were great, into that planning issue, so we don't lose it and I'm not
Will do.
miscapturing
there.
it in the notes,
Okay.
because I think that's a great idea.
Right. I'll put a
Oh,
to-do
wow.
for myself.
There's a whole chat going on there now too. Good call. Yeah. Anything else interesting in the world of app delivery that anyone wants to bring up here?
One last question about Paris. You said the meetings do they happen before the conference? Or I'm just thinking of scheduling. I haven't booked anything, and
I need to double check for you if we're actually having those. They did happen it was called pre-day events, and there was project meetings in the past, but we haven't heard about those for this time. So we need to ask Thomas Schutz. He's the one that's been coordinating. So let me ask him if we're going to have those, and I'll have an update for you in the next
okay.
meeting. But there is David, there is a pre-day event, Platform Engineering Day.
Well, that's okay. So I was wondering where the standalone day went, like the co-event. So, okay.
If I remember correctly, Tuesday is those events, and then Wednesday through Friday is the main conference.
Okay.
And we thought maybe they would give us project meetings, maybe even on Monday. But like I said, I don't know if they're actually going to, so don't bank on that yet.
Okay. All right. Well, I could always go a little early and be in Paris. So
Yeah, that's true. I'm hoping to make it, and if I do, then that's probably my plan too.
all right, cool. I am curious about the overlap between yesterday and then the stuff with Humanitech Score. Is there eventually something, are these going to work into the CNCF somehow? Like, and how do they fit actually in the CNCF framework?
I really like that question. Are you getting at the mass driver discussion yesterday?
Mass Driver and then Score seem to have a huge amount of overlap with each other, right? They're kind of they're both bomb style formats for platforms and infrastructure. So, that
That's a really, David, I think what you're asking is really a good question about the role of the tag, which to me, the role of we've got, let's say 20, 30 projects that are related to app delivery and app development and CNCF. Without the tag, they just operate in isolation. And so it's kind of, I think, our responsibility to do the best we can to at least loosely couple them. So I don't have an answer. Like I can't tell you today Score is going to start using JSON schema and use implementations from Mass Driver. That's what I was thinking after yesterday's call.
yeah.
But at least my thought is, at least if we get Florian to present Score and we had David present Mass Driver, and we begin to percolate these ideas out, then things can happen.
Yeah, and how much is implementation dependent versus what is a good definition or a larger schema for these kinds of objects? Like, you know, if I'm a big fan of the semantic web and, you know, coming up with schemas for things and then, you know, saying that a container has these properties, right? And you can define it from a semantic point of view. And then the implementation specifics could, you know, it can be YAML, JSON schema, and, you know, but at least as long as you're working with a container, you know that it should be able to represent itself with these properties. And that depending on what the, again, like the tag and the CNCF's role is in this kind of like you know, it's one thing for Kubernetes to say, this is an implementation, a runtime system. Whereas these new things are kind of a little more decoupled from the actual runtime. So, you know, that's why I'm asking what the role is. If you're decoupled that much, it kind of, I don't know that it gets away from the mission of the CNCF, right? But it's a little more abstract than the usual stuff we see from it.
Why do you think that it takes away from our mission? Because it's not Kubernetes?
I won't say takes away, gets away. Cloud native, or what I perceive as the kind of direction that CNCF takes, which is why this group has been appealing to me, because it gets away from the typical project and implementation oriented way that the CNCF presents things, right? It's very much, you know, it was spawned around Kubernetes and a few other things, and everything seems to revolve around, you know, Kubernetes oriented cloud native. Like, to me, cloud native is far beyond a Kubernetes API implementation, right? So that's why I've been interested in the working group, the tag and platform specifically, is it's kind of getting away from that. But I wonder how, not compatibility, but like where does that stand in the CNCF? And they're kind of being tied to implementation generally.
That's a really good question. I feel like, so we had presentations from Radius and 3Port, and they're both like MassDriver and kind of like Score, like layers over the top. They create other controllers. So I guess, I mean, I
But
think
on
that
Kubernetes, right? Like, all these projects are essentially extending the API of Kubernetes to manage other things.
Well,
I wouldn't
actually,
say all of
Score and
them, but
Radius
like the
don't
two, like
extend.
3Port definitely, right?
Kind of, but it actually uses a different, it uses a different controller layer on top.
Yeah. But they all assume Kubernetes. That's the thing, is everything assumes Kubernetes, and Score doesn't necessarily, and MassDriver don't necessarily. And that's where you're getting a bit of a different abstraction than the stuff we've seen so far.
Thank you for calling that out. I hear you. I would like to see us still involved in that. Like, this API group, I think, is particularly a good fit for that. Like, yeah, I don't know. To me, it seems like it's still about cloud native, I guess, even if it's not Kubernetes. I don't know. What do other people think?
Well, sorry, I think it is. I think it's a great direction, right, for the cloud native, like the idea of cloud native to be more and more decoupled from specifically Kubernetes. But I don't know, like I said, I'm very new to the CNCF and I don't know how that's viewed, right?
I think I would agree with that as well. I think there's a lot of dependence on this. And I think for a long time, people almost defined being Kubernetes by being on a container, specifically Kubernetes in this case, or being cloud native automatically meant being on Kubernetes or something. I think the challenge, however, is that there is still a significant number of people out there in the world who are using Kubernetes. So if you're trying to appeal to like a specific section of the audience or the users, I think you can't go away from Kubernetes, but maybe it needs to be generalized a little bit more that would work with other platforms. The fact is that about a significant number of people are using Kubernetes as a thing, as an orchestration mechanism. So if you want to target sort of the majority of people in the cloud native space, you would have to include that in some way. But obviously, like you say, it doesn't end there. I think it needs to be a little bit broader than that, which is where I think what drew me to CNCF actually, and this tag is there a way for us to, obviously there are so many tools that we discuss here on this forum, but CNCF itself has so many different tools. Is there a way for us to sort of look at all of those different tools, look at what the users are looking for, and come up with a standard that can be applicable across the industry? And then whatever implementation details or extension of that come in could be the responsibility of the tools themselves. But like what we've done with, say, on open telemetry, or what we've done maybe on the community specific space with the gateway API, which does a standardized version of an API gateway, but then the gateways themselves will come in and sort of extend that a little bit further. So the models and the standardized frameworks could be something that we look at because we've got that overall view of the different projects, and then the projects can sort of bring something new to the table associated with that. That's kind of my take on it, but again, open to suggestions from others as well.
Yeah, Buddha, you should check out that mass driver discussion that we had yesterday. Here, I'll post it in the thing. Because they're kind of pursuing like an API first, thing for that layer. That might be a way for us to converge the different layers over Kubernetes. Like if there's a common spec, then it could be implemented by a few different projects. So since you said
yeah, I'll check it out.
With API, so see because they're using JSON schema essentially to define.
Well, and that's the thing, they're using a JSON schema, right? It's remember when people used to refer to XML as a programming language? Yeah, and you can write it in XML. That's our programming language for our tool. Like, it's just a way of encoding things, so the actual schema itself is what's important. It could be represented in XSDs or anything else.
I see. You're saying we need like a base schema.
You need to define what, like, all the things that they're coming up with.
Common types.
Exactly. What is the schema? So it's not so much, the fact that they're using JSON schema is nice and useful for a bunch of like input validation, and they mentioned ranges and enums for saying that certain values are allowed or not. And I've seen other teams do this. It's very nice for sanitizing and abstracting. Like if you define in a schema that there's only an enum, then it's not freeform, and the user of the platform can only enter certain values into there. So either in a UI or in text files or whatever. So that's I think what they were looking for help with, and feedback is like, okay, we've got this, they'll have an overall container format, right, for their schemas, but then like, what are all these objects and how are they defined?
So you're saying we need like a collection of primitives that are kind of shared, and then maybe, there's a queue, and then I have my own, SQS.
Exactly. And then it gets into like possibly workflow stuff and more abstract, platform interaction pieces. And I don't know, Florian, like when we get to looking at, score, it'd be interesting to see the overlap. And a lot of these systems tend to have a specific representation born out of wherever they came from. And one of the things that has always been kind of dissatisfying about these is they tend to come from a specific organization and not always think about the user perspective on like, oh, this model makes sense to us because we built it. But then, the model gets presented to other people, new people to a given domain or whatever, and it doesn't, their selection of like object inheritance and stuff just doesn't make sense to other people. Sometimes they made it way too generic, or, because their definition of the domain model was very specific to their context. And then, you end up with something that could be a little difficult to work with.
Yeah, understand that. Yeah, I mean, will you join the presentation on January?
Absolutely,
23rd? Yeah. Okay, because there we will have also the experts there. I'm not an expert in mass driver, but I mean for score, what I can say there that we try to make this workload specification as platform agnostic as possible, and at the same time allow others build their own implementations for the use cases they need. But looking forward to the discussion on January 23rd. I think we have the presentation then.
If we okay, we'll
quick,
discuss
quick.
there. Yeah, sorry.
A question from my side, like, what exactly are you looking for, David? I'm not sure I really got it, because if I compare it to the, let's say, the GitOps working group, they haven't created the spec for what a GitOps controller should be. And this is why we have 2 right now. We might have 4 in the future for tooling, and each provide its own additional functionality, additional value, business values that some people choose to go with the one, some people choose to go with the other. So, are you looking for this working group to standardize and decide like what should be the spec for an application delivery?
Well, I think because we're getting into a layer of abstraction that kind of defines a view. So I don't know about the GitOps, and I'd be happy to find out more maybe from you. Are you a participant in that working group?
I'm a follower, but
okay. Well, just the so
I had to choose one, so I chose this one.
if you, I mean, did they define what good looks like?
They define principles.
Yeah, so principles.
Not a scheme, but principles, but not a scheme. As long as you adhere to those principles, then that's fine. Because like score.dev doesn't, it's one mass driver. I didn't know about it. You have kubevela, you have Crossplane, which can define additional, abstractions on top of Kubernetes. You have the plain CRD extension, which you can build your own. So you have like, I already counted like 5 different options, and
with all different, different approaches to slightly different
but it's
problem space, right?
But they're coming from different communities and they try to solve business values. And I don't think one of the things I know from reading and following the GitOps working groups is they don't try to declare a winner. They try to define the principles. As long as you define those principles and you follow this principle, that you can declare yourself as GitOps compliant, if I call it like this. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I do agree with Josh's approach that we should make those connections. If we see 2, 3, 4 different projects that might should align together, we can suggest that, but we shouldn't, like, I don't see how.
And that's my question about the CNCF, and where, like, me being new, right, and not knowing about, for instance, the way that GitOps has been working. Like, we have these different solutions being presented. Like, what's our role in that? Why are we seeing these, right? What are we doing with that? And is it coming up with a list of principles? Is it becoming more involved in the specifics of any of them? Like, that's just what I'm wondering, right?
I think that it's kind of it's what we want to do. To some degree, I think principles we all agree on. We'd love to have some principles around these new second level APIs. How specific and prescriptive, I guess, could be debated, whether it goes down to, well, everyone should have a write connection secrets to, I'm just thinking of Crossplane field. But I think finding some common ground, even if it's just writing up, this is what it looks like in kubevela, this is what it looks like in Crossplane, this is what it looks like in Score, this is what it looks like in 3-port, to create a SQSQ, and finding the commonalities there, and then encouraging, like, that will make it easier for our users to consume all these different projects if there's some conventions.
And again, one way we can start with is getting patterns that we see out there, and then working backwards from this one to define those principles.
I think I would agree with that, because I think when you say GitOps, right, I think GitOps, you could have 2 different approaches, but they're still, I would say, approaches, but not exactly tools that you're not defining with those 2 approaches. I'm assuming you're not defining and a specific stack of tools that will help you achieve that. But you're trying to sort of go with two approaches to automate your pipelines or help with the GitOps with certain principles in mind, potentially certain outcomes in mind, like you say, from a business perspective. And I think that's something that we could maybe help with and let the tools do the implementation side of things. And where there could be connectors between them, we could suggest that. I think the power of CNCF right now, as I see it, is to have that holistic view, which individual independent tools will not be able to do. So frameworks, patterns, any kind of metric of success or maturity models, I think that's where we could come in and help put something like that together as a standard, which can then have implementation details taken care of by these tools or specific stacks that will help you achieve those things. So with those two approaches with GitOps, you could have a wide array of tool sets that could help you achieve one or the other, which we don't need to define. But the outcomes that each one of them would hope to achieve is something that we could help perhaps drive a little bit further.
I like that. If we can define what, like, one that comes to mind for me all the time is binding and connections. Like, what if there was a common way you say connects to, and okay, 3-port does it its way and mass driver does it its way to maintain the connections, past secrets and things. But why does everybody have to have slightly different paradigms there? I don't know. So that could be a use case that the API group will come up with a convention for indicating that a workload connects to a service in the API. It's a long journey, though. That you have to first kind of see where they're at now and then encourage that convention.
It's true, and maybe the small steps and discussions like these that can help drive some of that. But I feel like that's where we have the ability. Again, I'm very new to this, so I say we as a very big generalization. I know there are more capable people here, but that could be what we bring to the table. Like I think what David you're asking, to have that overall view of okay, where are we heading towards, and that shouldn't be a blocker to innovation, which is why the tools can do their own thing and they can extend it in whichever direction that they want. But it gives sort of that framework to keep in mind when you're either presenting the CNCF or it's getting adopted, or what you can do in the future with it. So at least that's my take on how I see it.
It reminds me of DMTF's common information model. I don't know if you guys, if you folks have heard of that, but that was a standard for describing different parts of infrastructure within a single system, the chassis, the CPU, the memory bank, whatever. And it allowed, Windows, ostensibly Linux, other things to manage them. It just defined an interface essentially. And then different tools were able to manage it that way from that interface.
Yeah, it probably goes back to the world of SNMP, right? And
Really
management platforms and stuff, and not needing to rewrite them completely for every different operating system or device or what have you.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I see APIs, and I'm glad we're having this discussion. I see the APIs definition as really core to this, and it's not a bad time because that second level stuff is just coming in now. Like 3-port is very open to our feedback right now, in a year or two, maybe not. So it's good timing for you, Buddha, and hopefully I'll let you let them know in AEP that you're working on this, and I think we've got some possibilities.
100%. Will do. Thank you.
Karina, the AEP meeting that or the notes that you linked, are they not in the community? They're not part of CNCF. They're not part of the community calendar.
So there is a Slack channel too that I'll link, but they came to Tag App Delivery. We were talking about maybe a working group, and those are still in discussion. So they're not officially part of the CNCF, but they are I would consider them part of the tag.
Okay.
As tag members.
Okay. Thank you for that link.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I was excited about Apicurio, because I thought that would give them some momentum. Yeah, that's I think that's it. 3port.io. Yeah. They presented Tsachi in December to us.
Okay. I missed the whole December
Yeah, no,
meetings.
I understand.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that was a useful meeting of minds on APIs, and I hope we'll see some fruit of this. Yeah, so I guess I will again open it. Anything else? All right. Well, next week, if it's this Connect group, it with this RPC, it may also be relevant to this. So, FYI, we may be discussing APIs more next week. Here's the issue that's supposed to be coming next week. Connect. All right. So I guess that's all for today. Thank you all for the discussion, and we'll see you online.
Next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good day.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks.